Hi, my name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to Sassy Seer Sheila and New Light Streaming Love, as this will be seen on both channels. This is Bootlickers by Jason Gray. The original transmission date of this writing, June 26th, 2026, and I knew the moment I saw it that I had to record it. It was like huge coming in, and I'm sure you can't imagine why. So it begins genealogical file XR 991 dot omega, Galactic Council of Interstellar Civilizations Xenological Observation Directorate, file GCIC XR 991 dot omega symbol 7713. Archive node delta symbol Sol 3 Earth. Clearance cosmic black / level 9. Security classification declassified. Original observation date 4282. Earth years prior to first contact. Declassification authorization directive Omega 33 null. Observer species designation withheld. Translation matrix Human English V14.72. Authenticity hash. There's quite a few symbols there. -771.xr -991. Status released for cultural preparation. Translator's note. The following document is an observational artifact recovered from the Xenological Archives. The phrase, quote, bootlicker, does not describe contact between a biological organism and protective footwear. I think that's funny. It is the closest linguistic approximation available within human English for a neurological and sociological phenomenon observed repeatedly across developing civilizations. The original extraterrestrial term required 17 simultaneous emotional frequencies and cannot be reproduced using human language. Translation confidence, 97.8832%. Minor semantic distortion expected. An extraterrestrial assessment of humanity's curious relationship with authority. When our expedition first entered your solar system, we expected to discover warriors, scientists, artists, builders, explorers, philosophers. Every intelligent civilization eventually produces these. Earth was no exception. What we did not expect was the extraordinary number of individuals who voluntarily surrendered their own capacity to think the moment another individual appeared to possess authority. Now, I've actually spoken on this quite a few times on the channel, on all of my channels, wherever we've had this conversation in regards to consciousness, the tendency to hand our power over to somebody else because they have letters after their name or they went to school for that or whatever the case may be, really is a programmed condition. And I know no more so than anybody else suffered from that for a very long time. I'm proud to say that I work on that diligently now. Back to Jason's writing here, no force was required, no restraints, no neural suppression technology, no planetary occupation, no mind control frequencies, nothing. Only the appearance of certainty. Our youngest observers initially assumed this was an evolutionary defense mechanism. Surely these humans had verified the wisdom of those they followed. Surely the authority had demonstrated exceptional competence. Surely immense trust had been earned through repeated evidence. It had not. Our data became increasingly difficult to explain. Many humans obeyed titles, not wisdom, uniforms, not character, status, not truth, power, not understanding. This was unprecedented. After nearly 3 centuries of planetary observation, the High Council created an entirely new behavioral classification. Field Species Variant, XR-991.omega, Authority-Dependent Primate. Common translation, bootlicker. The term spread rapidly through our scientific community, not because it was insulting, but because it was astonishingly accurate. Section 1, the first discovery. The first confirmed bootlicker was documented during observation cycle 44.118.delta. Observer KHE-17 submitted an urgent report. The report described a human who immediately changed their opinions after a different human entered the room wearing a decorated uniform. Nothing else changed. No new evidence, no new facts, no new discoveries, only clothing. Within seconds, the neurological response of the surrounding humans shifted dramatically. Heart rate increased, voice tone softened, posture changed, critical evaluation decreased, agreement increased. Observer KHE-17 initially believed this was an isolated anomaly. It was not. Over the next 87 Earth years, the same behavioral sequence appeared millions of times. Different countries, different governments, different religions, different corporations, different militaries, different political parties, different centuries. The uniforms changed, the reflex remained identical. I want to pause here and just say this. This is exactly what I have talked about in regards to why we doubt ourselves. Because from the time we are teeny tiny little children, we are taught to hand our power over to authority, and that we have to stop doing that. This is why our children end up in situations where they are being harmed by other adults, by teachers who they've been taught are authority figures, by policemen who they've been taught are authority figures. And I don't have the right answers for it. Trust me, because I raised my child in that same manner. But we really have to look at it, because it's We have taught each other to just don't even pay attention to our own intuition. When our intuition tells us, don't listen to that, because they're in authority, we have disregarded, that was the word I was looking for, our own intuition way too many times. I know that. I know for a fact that's how I was raised. Section 2, the boot. Early translators mistakenly believed the boot itself possessed symbolic importance. The boot simply represents perceived authority. The material is irrelevant. Leather, fabric, steel, ceremonial footwear, military footwear, corporate footwear, political footwear, religious footwear, academic footwear. The physical object is meaningless. The psychological position is everything. Once the bootlicker identifies an authority hierarchy, their own neurological independence begins quietly shutting down. Questions become fewer. Agreement becomes easier. Doubt becomes uncomfortable. Certainty becomes addictive. The process is subtle. The individual rarely notices it is happening, which explains why the phenomenon became so widespread. That and the fact that we started as teeny tiny babies. We are teaching our children to respect my authority. To quote South Park, to at all costs, this is the way, and in certain cases we actually beat it into the child. That's what my experience was. Most of Gen X would concur with that, I can tell you that for certain. Back to the writing here, section 3, field identification. Young observers often ask, quote, how do we locate one? The answer surprised even our senior scientist. You do not locate them by appearance. Bootlickers wear every face, every race, every religion, every political ideology, every profession, every economic class, every generation. They are not identified by who they support. They are identified by how they think. Observe patiently. When confronted with evidence contradicting a respected authority, watch carefully. Do they investigate, or do they immediately defend the hierarchy? Do they ask, quote, is it true? Or who said that? This distinction reveals more than almost any psychological examination available to our civilization. Field warning, Delta-17, extreme caution. Observers frequently believe bootlickers exist only among groups with whom they already disagree. This assumption has repeatedly contaminated xenological research. Our archives confirm a more uncomfortable conclusion. Every civilization produces them. Every ideology produces them. Every institution produces them. Even observers themselves have occasionally become infected by the same pattern. For this reason, all field teams are required to perform self-reflection protocol Omega before attempting to classify another intelligence. The archive contains an ancient warning carved into the crystalline vaults of our oldest library. Quote, "The mind that believes itself beyond manipulation has simply become easier to manipulate." Failure to observe this protocol resulted in the collapse of 3 entire research expeditions, 2 civilizations, and 1 galactic senate. Those reports remain permanently sealed. So this is not something that's just limited to Earth. And this is one of the biggest reasons why I said, regardless what anyone thinks from my perspective of the QAnon phenomena, it has done more for the planet Earth than you would even imagine, because it caused people to ask questions, to begin to ask questions, where prior to that time, an awful lot of those beings that have since been part of the Great Awakening, they never ask questions about anything. And so it served a very real purpose that a lot of folks just did not and have not seen. But I maintain that it was one of the best things that could happen, regardless of what you think of it, whether it's real or not. Whether it did something for humanity, I say yes, it did. Just maybe not what one might have thought. It caused some beings to begin to question things. Okay, so back to the writing here. End of released excerpt. File status active. Node XR-991.omega. Disclosure sequence 37% complete. Authentication string. And there's quite a bit of more symbols here. Delta 771.XR991.SOL III, so that's 3 I'm gathering. Omega 17.null, CLV.run, RZN archive. Oh, I need to go in the RZN. End transmission, Jason Gray. So as with a lot of Jason's work, I highly recommend that if you are listening to me read this, just search by the title and see about allowing your eyes to go over that and the artwork. Although I use the artwork for the thumbnail, you don't get to see it but for a moment. And because I'm convinced there are keys and codes embedded in these things. And you may want to expose yourself to those. So, wow. I would love to hear what you think about this. If you're watching me, chances are you're already asking a lot of questions. And that is a good thing. And don't ever stop. Don't believe anybody but your own inner guidance. And I highly recommend that you question your inner guidance. and then just be still because you will get an answer. Until we meet again, my friends, be well.